My name is Nora Bellwether Hutchins. I'm 36 years old. On March 14, 2025, at 4:12 in the afternoon, my son turned 7 in a backyard on Ferris Street with a paper crown falling over one eye and a blue number 7 candle burning down into a Kroger sheet cake. There were 12 kids, a folding table, and a sprinkler nobody had asked me to turn on. His father was standing at the gate in a gray quarter zip, and behind him, at the curb, a man named Curtis Vane was holding a manila envelope and apologizing before he'd even said my name. "Are you Nora Hutchins?" I said I was. He handed it to me. Petition for change of custody. Emergency motion. Sole legal and physical custody to the father, Grant Merrick. Grant leaned over the fence while I was still reading the caption, close enough that I could smell his cologne over the frosting, and he said it quietly, the way he always said the worst things. "Some women are meant to raise children, Nora. You were only ever meant to carry one." His mother didn't get out of the car. She rolled the window down 4 inches and called across the lawn, "Don't make a scene, dear. The neighbors are watching." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't set down the knife. I finished cutting the slice I'd started, laid it on a paper plate with a napkin folded underneath, and handed it to a 7-year-old named Amos, and I said, "Careful, there's a strawberry in the middle." What Grant had forgotten, because men like Grant only remember the parts of their lives that flatter them, was that on November 2, 2021, a 71-year-old woman named Lorna Pike walked into the Shiawassee County Clerk's office and filed a sealed envelope with the court. 11 pages. His handwriting. His signature. A notary stamp in the bottom corner of every single page. It sat in a drawer for 3 years and 4 months. And on June 3, at 10:47 in the morning, Judge Adelaide Rourke looked over her glasses at a courtroom full of people who had come to watch me lose my son, and said, "The court will open Exhibit 14. Before I tell you what was in that envelope, and I'm going to tell you every word, do me one favor. Hit subscribe right now. Not later. Right now. Because what happened to Grant's mother after that courtroom emptied out is a story I've never said out loud, and I'm telling it in the next one." And drop your city and your local time in the comments. I read every single one. I want to know exactly where in the world you're sitting when you hear this. I grew up in Owasso, Michigan, in a 2-story house with a driveway that cracked a little more every winter and a mother who kept a running ledger in her head of what everyone in the family was worth. My sister Whitney was worth a great deal. She was 2 years older, she had our mother's chin, and she was good at things that could be photographed. Piano recitals. Cheer. A part in the spring musical in 2003 that my mother told the pharmacist about for 11 months. I was worth what I could carry. By the time I was 9 I was making Whitney's lunches. By 11 I was doing the laundry for 4 people on Sunday nights and folding it on the yellow Formica table in the kitchen while the chest freezer hummed in the mudroom. Nobody thanked me. That wasn't cruelty in our house. That was arithmetic. In April of 1998 the 4th grade took a bus to a rock and mineral museum in Ann Arbor. The permission slip was $40. I put it on the counter next to my mother's coffee on a Tuesday morning and stood there in my socks while she looked at it the way you look at a coupon that's expired. "We're not spending $40 for you to look at rocks." Whitney had started riding lessons that February. $90 a month at a stable out on Bennington Road. I didn't say that. I was 9, but I already knew the rules. I just stood there a second too long, and my mother saw it, and she put her cup down and gave me the sentence I have been unpacking for 27 years. "Nora. You're the one we made room for. Whitney's the one we made plans for." Then she asked me to bring the trash cans up from the curb. I went to school that day and told Mrs. Dowd I was sick on the 14th so I wouldn't have to be the one kid sitting in the library. I have never in my life seen a museum in Ann Arbor. If you were ever the one they made room for but never made plans for, type the word placeholder in the comments right now. One word. I need to know how many of us are out here. And if this is landing somewhere tender, hit like. Not for the algorithm. For yourself. Because somebody should have told you back then what nobody told me, the math was never about you. You were never the reason it didn't add up. The only person in my life who ever did the math differently was my grandmother, Ruth Bellwether, who lived 9 miles away in Corunna in a house that smelled like peppermints and dish soap and, faintly, always, like Vicks. Ruth was 5'1". She had been a court reporter for 31 years, which meant she had spent 3 decades listening to people lie under oath, and she had opinions about it. Saturdays I rode my bike out there and she made tomato sandwiches with too much salt and let me sit at the table while she played euchre with 3 other women, one of whom was a lawyer named Lorna Pike who wore men's cardigans and never once talked down to me. Ruth said things one time and never repeated them. That was her way. When I was 15 and told her something my mother had said to me, she didn't get angry. She went to the hall closet and came back with a composition notebook and a Bic pen and put them in front of me. Write it down. The date, the time, the words. Not how you felt. What was said. I asked her why. Because memory bends, honey. Paper doesn't. I filled 11 of those notebooks between 2004 and 2016. I still have all of them in a fireproof box I bought at Meijer for $39. I met Grant Merrick in the spring of 2013, when I was 24 and working the front desk at a physical therapy clinic on Corunna Avenue. He came in for a rotator cuff. His family owned Merrick Property Group, strip malls, storage units, 2 hotels off I-69, and he had the kind of confidence that men inherit and mistake for character. He remembered the name of my car. He sent flowers to my apartment when my hours got cut. I want to be honest with you about something, because it took me a therapist and 4 years to be honest with myself about it. I did not fall in love with a stranger. I fell in love with a familiar sound. Grant spoke to me in my mother's voice, and I had been trained since I was 9 to hear that voice as normal, and to hear kindness as a bonus I hadn't earned. His mother Diane took me to lunch 2 weeks before the wedding in September of 2016, at a country club in Grand Blanc, and told me, between the salad and the entree, "You're a very lucky girl, Nora. And lucky girls stay quiet." I laughed. I actually laughed, because I thought it was a joke, and she let me. Theo was born March 14, 2018, at 6:32 in the morning, 7 pounds 1 ounce, with a full head of dark hair and a wrinkled furious face. Grant held him for 90 seconds and handed him back and went out to the hallway to take a call about a parking easement in Flint. Now I have to tell you about October 9, 2021. Grant had Theo for the day. He was 3. At 8:40 that night I got a call from a woman named Bernadette Squires, 58, a retired school bus driver from Mount Pleasant, who had found my son asleep in a car seat in the back of a black Yukon in a casino parking lot with the engine off and the temperature at 41 degrees. She'd found my number because Theo had a laminated card in his diaper bag with my cell on it. I had put it there when he was 8 weeks old, and I had felt paranoid doing it. I drove 71 miles in 58 minutes. Grant came out at 9:52. He had been inside for an hour and 40 minutes. He'd lost $11,000, which I learned later, and which was not the point, and never was. Bernadette had a phone in her hand. She asked me, not him, whether she should call it in. Grant was on his knees on the asphalt by then, holding the tire of his own car, saying my name over and over like it was a prayer he'd just learned. 3 days later, Diane Merrick came to my house on a Tuesday with her checkbook. She sat at my kitchen table in a camel coat and wrote out $63,500, which I have always believed was a number her accountant gave her, and she slid it across the table and said, "This is generosity, dear. Don't confuse it for guilt." I didn't take the check. I called Lorna Pike, who was 67 then and semi-retired and playing a lot of euchre, and Lorna drove down and sat in my kitchen and said, "This money spends. Paper stays. Ask him for the paper." So I did. On November 1, 2021, at a kitchen table in Corunna with my grandmother in the next room, Grant Merrick wrote 11 pages in his own handwriting. What he did. The date. The times. The amount he'd lost. The temperature. He wrote that he had left our son unattended, that he had lied to me about it, that he had asked me not to report it, and that in exchange he agreed I should have sole legal and physical custody of Theo, and that he would never petition a court for more. Dennis Holloway, 63, who ran Holloway & Sons Insurance on Main Street and had notarized my grandmother's documents for 20 years, stamped every page and signed the log. And then Lorna did the thing I still don't fully understand her for, and love her for. She didn't file it as an exhibit in the divorce. She sealed it and lodged it with the court, under a request that it remain closed unless the court itself opened it. I asked her why we weren't using it. She said, "Because you don't want to win, honey. You want it to be over. Leave the door shut. If he never comes for that boy, it stays shut forever." The divorce finalized on August 22, 2022. I got the custody arrangement anyway, uncontested, because Grant had a lawyer who told him to take it. I never mentioned the envelope. Not once. Not in 4 years. Not when he was 6 weeks late on support. Not when he skipped the kindergarten program. Not when Theo asked me why Daddy's new house had a room for a baby that wasn't him. My grandmother died on February 9, 2023. 84. In her sleep, in the house in Corunna. I got her recipe box, her wedding ring, and a note in her handwriting that said only, "You already know how to do this." I rebuilt small. I rented 418 Ferris Street for $1,100 a month. I moved from the front desk into billing and then into supervising billing, and by 2025 I had $21,840 in a savings account at the credit union and a 2016 Honda Civic with a cracked mirror housing I never got fixed. Then Grant got engaged to a pediatric dentist named Marisol, and Diane decided that the Merrick name needed a household it could be proud of, and on my son's 7th birthday a man in a gray polo handed me an envelope in my own backyard. The petition said I was emotionally unstable. It cited the 8 months of therapy I did in 2022. It cited a wellness check I had once requested on my own mother. It attached a signed statement from Kaylee Brandt, 29, who had watched Theo 2 afternoons a week in 2024, saying I left my son alone for hours and drank. Grant's family spent $86,000 on that petition. I know the number because it came out later. I paid Lorna Pike a $9,400 retainer, and she came out of retirement to take it, and the first thing she did was pull the docket, and the second thing she did was call me at 9:15 on a Thursday night and say 4 words, "The envelope is still there." Everything I'm about to tell you happened in about 40 minutes on a Tuesday morning. 40 minutes that undid 9 years. If you're not subscribed yet, now's the time, because the aftermath, what happened to Diane Merrick after that room cleared out, is its own story, and I'm only telling it to the people who are here for the long run. And answer me this in the comments, if you'd been holding that envelope for 4 years, would you have opened it the day the papers came, or would you have waited, like I did, and let the court do it? Would you have kept it shut? June 3, 2025. Courtroom 4B. Judge Adelaide Rourke, 62, 17 years on the family bench, reading glasses on a beaded chain. They came in like a wedding party. Grant in navy. Diane in cream. Marisol in the second row with her hands folded. Their attorney was Bexley Crane, 52, out of Birmingham, and he had 2 associates and a rolling cart of binders, and I had Lorna Pike in a cardigan with a legal pad and 1 accordion folder. Grant testified beautifully. He always did. He talked about stability. He said the word environment 9 times. He said, "I love Theo's mother. This isn't about punishing her. It's about correcting an oversight." Diane had used that same word at my kitchen table. It's a family word. Kaylee Brandt testified next, and she couldn't look at me, and she said I'd left Theo alone on a Thursday in September. On cross, Lorna stood up slowly, the way 71-year-old women are allowed to, and asked Kaylee whether she had received any money from anyone connected to this case. Kaylee said no. Lorna asked her about 4 payments from a Venmo account under the name D. Merrick, totaling $4,000, between March 19 and May 2. Kaylee started crying at 10:31 in the morning. She said, "She told me it wasn't about you." She said it to me, out loud, in a courtroom, and Judge Rourke let her. Then came the exhibit list, and Bexley Crane objected to item 14, which was listed only as an *sealed instrument, lodged with the court November 2, 2021. To be opened at the court's request **. He called it a fishing expedition. He said no such document should be entertained. He said, and I remember the phrasing, "Your Honor, this is theater." Judge Rourke took off her glasses. "Mr. Crane," she said. "The court lodged it. The court will open it." Bailiff Ronaldo Cruz, 54, went out and came back 4 minutes later with a manila envelope, red string wound around a paper button, my grandmother's handwriting on the front because she had addressed it herself. The judge cut the string with a letter opener. She read for 6.5 minutes without speaking. Nobody in that room said a word. I could hear the HVAC. I could hear Marisol's chair. Then she said, "This is 11 pages in what purports to be the petitioner's hand, notarized on each page, dated November 1st, 2021. And she started reading it aloud. She read the date. She read the address of the casino. She read the time he went in and the time he came out. She read the temperature. She read the sentence where Grant wrote, "I asked her not to call anyone and I told her I would make it right." She read the paragraph where he agreed, in writing, that Theo should remain with me. Grant's face didn't crack. That's the thing about him. His face never cracks. His mother's did. Diane Merrick stood up in the gallery at 10:47 in the morning, and in a voice that carried all the way to the back of courtroom 4B, she said, "That was purchased." Judge Rourke looked up. "Purchased with what, Mrs. Merrick?" And Diane, cream coat, pearl earrings, 68 years old, a woman who had once told me lucky girls stay quiet, said it. With $63,500 that she was too stupid to take. Stop. Stop right here for a second. If your heart is pounding, if you've been waiting for this exact moment since the beginning of this video, hit that like button. Not for me. For every person who was ever told they were too stupid, too much, too quiet, and kept the receipts anyway. And subscribe, because what happened to Diane Merrick after the cameras were off and that room cleared out is something I have never told anyone. Not until now. And comment one word, what would you have said to Diane if you were standing where I was standing? One word. I'm reading them all tonight. Here's what I said. Nothing. I sat with my hands in my lap and I let the room do it. Ronaldo Cruz walked halfway up the aisle. Judge Rourke told Diane to sit down or be removed, and Diane sat, and Bexley Crane put his hand flat on the table like a man steadying a boat. Then it came apart, one person at a time. Lorna called Bernadette Squires, 58, retired bus driver, who had driven 90 minutes that morning in a blue blouse and told the court exactly what she found in that parking lot on October 9, 2021, and what a 3-year-old's hands feel like at 41 degrees. She called Dennis Holloway, 63, who brought his notary log with him, the original, and read the entry line by line, and confirmed that Grant Merrick had sat across from him and signed all 11 pages without being asked to. She called Owen Petrakis, 44, Grant's business partner from 2015 to 2023, who had been subpoenaed and who did not look happy to be there and testified anyway that he had bought Grant out because of gambling losses he estimated at over $300,000. And then Patrice Awoma, 46, the guardian ad litem, who 2 weeks earlier had filed a report calling my home adequate, a word I hated so much I read it 40 times, asked the court's permission to amend her recommendation on the record. She said, "Your Honor, I was not given this information. I am withdrawing my prior findings." Marisol Reyes Cardenas stood up at 11:26 and walked out of courtroom 4B and did not come back. I heard later she moved out that weekend. I've never spoken to her. I hope she's all right. Bexley Crane asked to withdraw the emergency motion. Judge Rourke denied it. She said, "You may not unring this, counsel." She asked me one question, directly, from the bench. She asked why I had never used the document. I stood up. I hadn't planned anything. I said 7 words. Because he was still Theo's father, Your Honor. Grant looked at me then. First time all morning. The ruling came down at 12:14. Petition denied with prejudice. Sole legal and physical custody to me, permanently. Parenting time for Grant's supervised, at the Bridges Family Center, 2 hours every other Saturday, subject to review. Attorney fees against the petitioner, $22,000 of them. And Judge Rourke referred Diane Merrick's statement and the $4,000 in Venmo payments to Kaylee Brandt to the county prosecutor's office. Grant walked out on his own. His mother was escorted. Here's what happened after. Diane pled to a misdemeanor in December and paid a fine and got probation, which is less than she deserved and more than she ever thought would touch her. Merrick Property Group lost the Corunna Avenue redevelopment bid in September when the transcript became public record, because transcripts are public record, and that is a thing wealthy people forget. Grant's broker's license was suspended in November. He sold the Yukon. I bought 418 Ferris Street on October 17 for $147,000, 3.2% down, with a payment lower than the rent I'd been paying. In January they made me director of revenue cycle. $71,500 a year, and dental. In February I got a letter from Kaylee Brandt with a $200 money order in it and 4 pages of handwriting. I sent the money order back and kept the letter. She's 29. Somebody with money leaned on her and she folded, and I know exactly what that feels like, because I did it for 6 years in a house in Grand Blanc. My sister Whitney texted me on Christmas Eve. One line. Was she like that with you the whole time we're working on it? Slowly. 2 survivors comparing notes is not a reconciliation, but it isn't nothing either. Theo turned 8 on March 14, 2026. Same backyard. No fence conversation. 22 kids, because I let him invite the whole class, and a sprinkler I turned on myself. Here's what I've learned, and it's the only wisdom I've got. Everyone tells you the truth will set you free. Nobody tells you that sometimes the truth is a door you keep closed on purpose for years, because a child is standing on the other side of it and he isn't ready. I didn't stay silent because I was weak. I stayed silent because my grandmother taught me that paper doesn't bend, and paper doesn't get impatient either. It waits. It will wait as long as you need it to. They came for my son, and the door opened by itself. That envelope is in Theo's desk drawer now. Empty, red string gone, my grandmother's handwriting still on the front. He keeps his drawings in it. He has no idea what it is. That's the whole point. I lit the blue candle again this year. I'd kept it in a Tupperware, which is the most bellwether thing I have ever done, and when he blew it out he asked me what I wished for. I told him the truth. Nothing. I already got mine. If this meant something to you, if you've ever been the one who carried everything and got counted as nothing, share this with one person. Just one. The one you're already thinking of, the one still sitting quiet at somebody's kitchen table doing the math. Subscribe if you want to hear what Diane Merrick did 6 months later, because that story is uglier than this one and I've never told it. And comment, I opened it, if you ever finally said the thing you'd been holding for years. I see you. Every single one of you. And I'm proud of you.